The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Zexara transmitted the image to every delegate's neural interface. The holographic display showed a creature that defied every natural law they understood. This is what humans call a shadow maw. Zexara's voice trembled with fear. 4 meters tall, 800 kilograms, capable of tearing through reinforced titanium. Council member Yorvak leaned forward, compound eyes reflecting the beast's terrifying visage. "Where did you encounter this abomination?" "We didn't encounter it in the wild," Zexara replied, tentacles writhing anxiously. "We found it on the human colony ship Endeavor in their agricultural bay." Gasps rippled through the chamber. Agricultural bay? These death machines were farming? The humans have domesticated an entire pack. They use them to clear forests, plow fields, and, he paused, struggling to believe his words, as companions for their children. High Council Mexandra's crystalline form pulsed with disbelief. Impossible! Shadow maws are apex predators from Kythara 7. Even our military units avoid that death world. Yet humans not only landed there, they established a thriving colony. When they left, they brought these creatures as willing partners, not captives. The chamber erupted in confused chatter. How could any species approach such monsters, let alone befriend them? The very concept violated everything they understood about survival and natural order. 3 weeks later, xenobiologist Dr. Kithron observed the human colony ship from her research vessel Quiet Observer. Her mission: understand how humans achieved the impossible. Through sensors, she watched horrified as a human child rode a shadow maw's back through a recreational area. The massive beast moved carefully, clearly protecting its precious cargo. "Computer, analyze human shadow maw interactions," she commanded. The creatures display pack hierarchy behaviors, but humans show no dominant physical traits. Communication appears vocal and tactile. Dr. Kithron's scales rippled with confusion. Shadow maws responded only to superior strength. How were these fragile humans establishing control? Her answer came during a critical incident. A shadow maw wandered near the ship's reactor, triggering alarms. Instead of fleeing, a human engineer calmly approached the massive predator. "No, Rex, away from the hot stuff. Come on, boy." The shadow maw's ears drooped, following the human like a scolded pet. But Dr. Kithron realized this wasn't submission, it was trust. The creature trusted the human enough to obey without question, and the human trusted enough to approach unarmed. "Impossible," she whispered. "They've formed genuine emotional bonds." This violated everything known about apex predator behavior. Yet the evidence was undeniable. Humans hadn't dominated these creatures through force or technology. They had somehow earned their loyalty through something far more radical: friendship. Captain Sarah Chen reviewed reports when her communication officer announced an incoming Galactic Council transmission. "They want our secret," Lieutenant Park reported with amusement. "Half the galaxy thinks we're using mind control." Sarah chuckled as Rex, her 2-ton shadow maw companion, lifted his head from beside her chair. Despite his size, he simply yawned and rested his chin on her desk, seeking attention. "Tell them we'll explain, but they need to come aboard." The response was predictable: absolute refusal. Being near shadow maws meant suicide in their minds. "Their loss," Sarah mused, scratching Rex's ears. "What do you think, boy?" Rex's tail wagged, a motion that would terrify most species but simply meant excitement to Sarah. The truth was revolutionary. Humans hadn't tamed shadow maws, they'd befriended them. While others saw monsters, humans saw intelligence, loyalty, and partnership potential. It began with respect. First colonists on Kythara 7 didn't arrive with weapons or force fields. They observed, learned, and approached with curiosity rather than fear, discovering shadow maws were highly social creatures valuing loyalty above all. The breakthrough came when colonist Marcus Webb spent 3 days sitting motionless near a den, simply existing without threat. When the pack approached, it was with cautious curiosity, not extended claws. From there, humans proved trustworthiness by sharing food, treating injuries, and defending against predators. In return, Shadow Maws offered strength, loyalty, and protection. Partnership, Sarah explained to the empty bridge, not domination. The Galactic Council's skepticism peaked when reports emerged of humans using Shadow Maws in military operations. Footage showed massive predators charging alongside human soldiers, their combined force overwhelming enemies with unprecedented efficiency. "This changes everything," declared War Prime Hexstool. "If humans can weaponize apex predators, they threaten galactic stability." Emergency protocols activated. Within hours, a war fleet surrounded the human colony ship, weapons ready. The ultimatum was clear: demonstrate control over these creatures or face destruction. Captain Shen received the message with characteristic calm. "Rex, looks like we need to show them real partnership." The demonstration occurred in the cargo bay, with council representatives maintaining several kilometers distance. Through remote cameras, they watched Sarah enter a chamber containing 12 fully grown Shadow Maws. The creatures immediately surrounded her, but instead of expected carnage, they began playful behavior. They nudged her gently, competed for attention, and performed complex maneuvers at simple verbal commands. "Computer, analyze threat levels," War Prime Hexfool commanded. "No threat detected. Creatures show no aggression. Stress hormones indicate contentment." The real shock came during the ultimate trust exercise. Sarah lay down among the Shadow Maws and closed her eyes. The massive predators arranged themselves protectively around her, some resting while others maintained watch. "She's sleeping," Dr. Catherine whispered, amazed. "Sleeping surrounded by apex predators?" "Not surrounded," Sarah's voice corrected over calm. "Protected. There's a difference." The demonstration shattered every assumption about predator-prey relationships, revealing something the galaxy had never witnessed: genuine interspecies trust. The revelation that humans had formed genuine partnerships with Shadow Maws sent shockwaves through galactic civilization. Emergency xenopsychology sessions were convened to understand how such a thing was possible. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the human colony's chief behavioral scientist, found herself giving lectures to beings who had studied interspecies relations for millennia. "You're all asking the wrong question," she explained to the assembled experts. "You want to know how we control them, but we don't control them at all." The audience, a mixture of tentacled, crystalline, and energy-based life forms, stirred with confusion. "Control implies dominance," Elena continued. "What we've established is something far more powerful: mutual respect and genuine affection. The Shadow Maws aren't our slaves or our tools. They're our partners, our friends, and, in many cases, our family." High psychologist Vrendar of the Academic Collective interjected, "But the risk assessment protocols clearly indicate." "Risk assessment," Elena interrupted, "assumes that every interaction is potentially hostile. Humans approach new relationships with the assumption that friendship is possible. Yes, it's risky. Sometimes we get hurt, but the rewards far outweigh the dangers." She gestured to a live feed showing human children playing with Shadow Maw cubs in what appeared to be a daycare facility. "These children are learning empathy, responsibility, and courage. The Shadow Maws are learning patience, gentleness, and the joy of play. Both species are better for the relationship." The audience watched in stunned silence as a toddler fell asleep curled against a Shadow Maw's side, using the creature's massive paw as a pillow. "This is madness," someone whispered. "No," Elena smiled, "this is trust." Word of the human-Shadow Maw partnership spread throughout the galaxy, reaching even the most isolated systems. Reactions were swift and divisive. Some species viewed humans as reckless fools courting extinction. Others saw them as potential allies capable of solving impossible problems. The true test came from an unexpected source, Xerion Prime, home to the galaxy's most advanced military academy. Their top general, known only as the Strategist, issued a formal challenge. If humans claim to have mastered these beasts through partnership, let them prove it in combat. Send your human Shadow Maw teams against our best tactical units. If you succeed, the galaxy will acknowledge your methods. If you fail, you will cease this dangerous experimentation. Captain Chen recognized both trap and opportunity. They're not just challenging our bond with the Shadow Moss, they're challenging everything we believe about cooperation and trust. The combat trials were unlike anything the galaxy had witnessed. Traditional military doctrine emphasized overwhelming firepower, advanced technology, and rigid hierarchical commands. The human approach was radically different. Teams of 3 humans and 2 Shadow Maws moved across battlefields with fluid coordination. No barked orders or forced compliance. Subtle gestures, meaningful glances, and intuitive understanding guided their movements. When Sergeant Williams needed to breach a fortified position, her Shadow Maw partner Luna didn't wait for commands. She recognized the tactical situation and positioned herself perfectly. When Luna found herself surrounded by enemy drones, Williams didn't hesitate to risk herself providing covering fire. The strategist's forces, despite technological superiority, found themselves consistently outmaneuvered by these hybrid teams. The humans and Shadow Maws fought not as separate units following orders, but as a single organism with multiple perspectives and capabilities. "How are they coordinating so effectively?" demanded the strategist. "Our sensors detect no command frequencies, no neural links, no technological aids." The answer came during the final engagement. Williams was separated and cornered by enemy forces. Luna, despite being across the battlefield, somehow sensed her partner's distress and began fighting through enemy lines with desperate fury. It wasn't technology connecting them, it was something far more primitive and powerful: love. 6 months after the combat trials, representatives from over 200 species requested meetings with human diplomats. The galaxy wanted to understand not just how humans had tamed Shadow Maws, but how they might apply these principles to their own interspecies challenges. Dr. Vasquez found herself at the center of a revolution in galactic thinking. Her research on human Shadow Maw bonding had evolved into a comprehensive philosophy of interspecies cooperation. "The secret isn't in the taming," she explained to the newly formed Council for Cooperative Evolution. "It's in the approaching. Most species encounter something dangerous and think about control, avoidance, or destruction. Humans ask, how can we be friends?" The results spoke for themselves. Human colonies reported unprecedented success in terraforming hostile worlds by approaching native species as potential partners rather than obstacles. On Kethvar, humans befriended crystal worms, creatures previously too dangerous to approach. The worms now helped locate ore deposits in exchange for protection from predators. On ocean world Aquatica, humans formed working relationships with massive depth swimmers. These former ship destroyers now guided vessels through dangerous currents and warned of underwater hazards. Even on Earth, conservation efforts were reimagined as collaboration rather than protection from humans. Rex, now elderly by Shadow Maw standards, lay beside Captain Chen as she reviewed reports. Dozens of species were requesting human advisors for their own interspecies partnerships. The galaxy was slowly learning what humans had always known. Trust, while risky, was the foundation of all meaningful relationships. "You know what's funny, Rex?" Sarah said, scratching his graying ears. "They still think we're crazy." Rex's rumbling purr shook the deck plating. In his way, he was laughing too. Perhaps humans were crazy, crazy enough to approach apex predators with open hands instead of weapons, crazy enough to trust in friendship over force, crazy enough to believe understanding was more powerful than control. And maybe that particular brand of craziness was exactly what the galaxy needed. Humans weren't the only species crazy enough to tame shadow moths. They were the only species crazy enough to realize that taming was never the point at all.